Hey, Josh.
Hello, everyone.
Hello. Hello.
I will suggest maybe we wait 1 or 2 minutes to see if more people join, and then we can start. Sounds good.
Sounds good. Basic teams reporting in live from Portugal. Hello, everybody.
Oh, really? Are you in Lisbon or any other city?
Here in Faro, in the south of Portugal.
Faro. Oh, it's not the best time of year to be in Faro, but it's lovely.
We're having a blast.
So I'll just post the agenda so you can see. Um, and we still have a couple of people joining. But I think I'll just start by just going through the topics we are discussing today, and then if there's any other open topics people want to bring up, you are welcome to do so. So I will start with just showing the current timeline and to-dos for the EIPs. Then do a quick update on the compute repricing, so 7904. And then also we have a few updates on the state growth EIP, so 8037. And finally, this is more of an FYI that Tony has pushed today a PR for changing the specs for the data EIP, so 7976 and 7981. So maybe we can start. So I'll just try to share my screen and show you the to-dos. Mm, Okay. So this is a page that I will try to keep as much updated as needed. So here we have an initial timeline for when things need to be done, by what date, so that we can, by interop, have everything ready on the repricing side. Um, and then here we have some goals for the different work streams that we are currently working on for February. But essentially, I just wanted to focus here on this first part so that I can give you like an overview of the key milestones and why things need to be done by what date. So the first thing is by end of February, we need to have the preliminary numbers on the EIP. So this means mostly the things missing are 7904, so the compute EIP, and the state access EIP, so the 8038, so that we can start running a backward compatibility analysis and start engaging with the community with those preliminary numbers. Also, by the end of February, it's important for us to have all the tooling ready to then compute the final numbers. And what does this mean? So this means that we need to have the balls optimizations in place so that we can run our benchmarks taking into account the optimizations. We also need to run things on the Fusaka fork, which for the preliminary numbers, we are still using Prague. So this will give us more accurate numbers. And besides having like all these tooling ready, we will also have the specs for the EIPs, and this is more important for 8037. So by the end of February, because 8037 is the one with more open questions, the idea is to have the specs closed by that date. So in March, we can start doing the benchmarks and analysis for the final numbers. And by the end of March, we have those final numbers, and we can have the DevNet with balls and all the repricings integrated. And then in April, that gives us time to then do testing, security analysis, and so forth. And I would say also during March, we will be doing more community outreach and collecting potential issues from the repricing so that we can fix them during April. So this is the general rollout. And I think this kind of stresses, again, the need for, by the end of February, we have a good set of clients with the main optimizations for block level access lists done so that we can benchmark them and make sure that the numbers we have for all the EIPs make sense. Does this timeline make sense to you? Do you have any comments, any feedback? Okay, so if not, you are also welcome to read this async and just ping me with comments. It would be super helpful. So then we can move to the next point of the agenda. So on the compute EIP, so as you should remember, the initial EIP was a general repricing that was making all the operations that could be cheaper. But during the discussion of the EIP's inclusion, we had this understanding of let's reduce the scope of this EIP to focus just on a couple of operations that are current bottlenecks, so making things more expensive, and then don't change the price of anything else. And so I've started to update the EIP to be in line with that. So I don't think I'm checking. I don't think I linked the EIP PR in the agenda. I didn't, but I will share him the chat and then share after also. But the general format is that now we are repricing only 13 operations. And I can maybe show you how the EIP looks like. Let me just see if I can share my screen again. Okay. Okay, so the way it is looking now is we are repricing these 13 operations. So these are the ones that are performing worse than 60 milligas per second. And this is the worst client. So the worst client is performing at less than 60 milligas per second. And also difference between the worst and the second worst is not too large. So this means that these operations are not something that could be optimized. It's mostly like an underperforming or an operation that is difficult to be performing better. And we already talked with the Bezo team about this, and all the operations that are worse than this, or to put this more specifically, all the pure compute operations, because we still have the state operations, but the pure compute operations that perform worse than 60 million gas per second and are not here are things that the team is signaled that they could optimize by the time of the fork. again, these numbers are still not final, and the reason for that is that first, this was run on the Prague fork, not Osaka, and we still need to run this again with Prague. Then also doesn't take into account block level access lists optimizations. So maybe some numbers will actually be much different after we take that into consideration. And third, there are a couple of tests here that seem to have increases that are so as an example, like for Ketchak, the message size is not having an increase, and even AdMod is not having an increase. And the reason for that is that likely there's some caching or some thing in the test that we need to double check. And so this final number doesn't match the worst case block we are seeing in the other tests. And so there's still some work to do here and to verify, but this is more the shape of the EIP now. So we have just a couple of operations and precompiles. Things are becoming more expensive, and instead of just having like a single like a reprice where everything becomes cheaper. Any comments or questions?
Yeah, sorry, I have a question. So, from what I understand, AdMod, for example, stays the same, but div and sdiv are like 3 or 4 times more
Right.
expensive. So, what's the rationale? Because now div is more expensive than even mulmod.
Yeah. So I think this is the point where we need to go back to the tests and make sure that the runtimes we are seeing are correct. But these numbers are completely coming directly from the benchmarks. So it's there's no like rationale behind it. Is we are measuring how much a block of these opcodes takes to run. Then we estimate the cost of a single opcode running based on so we exclude like the fixed costs of setting up these blocks. So we try to isolate as much the other opcodes and just get to the how much a single opcode takes to run. Then we check what is the worst case client, and then we transform that from runtime to gas using the conversion rate of the 60 million gas per second. So this is how these numbers arrive. And so the fact that, for instance, AdMon doesn't have an increase while div and sdiv do, this is the point where we need to go back to the text and make sure that things make sense there.
Thank you.
Ben?
Sorry. Just to follow up on Molmod, I'd look at the 256-bit mods because they're used as the output for yeah, they're used for some of the outputs, and they're quite common, and they're also significantly worse than with small mods. Also, I'd want to raise point evaluation is increasing, and that is the number in the blob base fee floor. So that should have a knock-on on tests because it should, if we're to follow this through correctly, it should increase that floor price.
Right. And do you think that should be a desired knockout effect, or shouldn't it be?
I think it should be a desired knock-on effect because it's meant to capture the cost of doing point evaluation. So, yeah,
right.
If we're increasing, I mean, it's a low floor anyway, so it's not like a huge increase. But
right.
to stick to the
maybe
formula, it should it should use the updated value.
Okay, so that's a good point, and maybe I will add it to the EIP so it doesn't so we don't miss it when we are doing the specs. Any more comments? Okay, so I'll stop sharing my screen, and then we can go to the next item in the agenda. So 8037. Can I check, is Francesco in the call? I think
Yeah.
so. Okay, so Francesco, can you give a quick update on the specs for 8037? You worked on them like a few weeks ago. So if you could just give us like a view on what is done, and in your view, what are the open questions?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I haven't worked on it in a while, so it's not like a super maybe up to date view, but I tried to like take a look again. So I mean, what is there right now? I think it mostly matches what's in the IP, especially after we had updated that table with the gas costs. I can link them later. I think there's like a few small difference in the IP in like maybe naming of some things, and maybe already there's some regular gas costs that are added there that they're not in the EIP. But I think like yeah, most things are as in the EIP. I think the main questions I still had open were which yeah, same as in the EIP. They're not really, it's not like things that really like came out of kind of nitty gritty of the specs. It's more like just high level questions of the EAP. Is like the regular gas costs, like for basically any time that we have an operation where we're kind of unbundling state gas and regular gas, there's a question of like exactly how to do it. And I think for most of them, it's fairly straightforward. Like there's already a pretty clear distinction in how the gas costs were historically written. There's places where that's not the case. I think that chiefly that's create. So for create, there's some regular gas cost, but there's not really anything that's capturing basically the actual cost of making the new account, other than or rather there is, but it's just this one number, gas create, that's kind of bundling both the state growth part of it, which is what we kind of want to split out into state gas, and then everything else. So which might be, I don't know, like try operations and whatever else. And so this other thing, it's not right now named in any way, I think neither in the IP nor in the specs. And it's not even clear like what it should be like numerically, like what is this cost and like how does it compare to other costs that we have. I mean, I guess it might be maybe somewhat comparable to like a storage update or something like that. But like yeah, the precise way that we should come to this number, I think no one has really like thought too much. So that's one question. Another question was around yeah, kind of similarly in this like how well once we split out operations and we have the state gas component, maybe like in some cases it's worth also revisiting. So, but yeah, I guess very explicit. Like basically, we have in the S store case, the update case versus the like new slot case, and it's not clear that these should be priced exactly the same in regular gas. Maybe it's fine to just do that. It's maybe not the biggest difference in the world, but yeah, like we can in they're going to be differentiated by the fact that one of the two has a state gas component, which is about state growth, but even the regular gas component maybe should be different because it's just not really the same to do a try insertion versus an update. So that's like yeah, another kind of small question, whether we care about this, and if so, then what is the right way to go about it. There was a question around receipts, which I don't know, I've not followed kind of the parallel discussion on this for the other EIP. So maybe, yeah, that one we should first kind of, someone should like summarize what happened there, and then we can see how does it apply to the CIP. And yeah, one last question, which I just noticed in the specs, was that basically with this like reservoir mechanism for state gas, or like as part of this mechanism, and how it enables to enforce some kind of transaction max gas limit, like not anymore as a validity condition, but somewhat during execution. We were not, or at least I was not. I don't know how. I don't remember how Marius's prototype did, and I'm not sure if this is like written this way in the EIP. I was not enforcing this on intrinsic gas or like intrinsic regular gas, which yeah, I think should be the case. Like I think this should basically be like checked for the max of intrinsic regular gas and the cold data floor gas cost up front. So you should like just ensure that the max of these two does not go over the cap, and then intrinsic regular gas should kind of be subtracted the from this like 16 million number or 16.7 million number when you actually pass the gas that's basically like the allowed regular gas to the actual execution. This was probably too many things, but yeah, okay. If there's anything there that made sense and people want to like try to zoom in into, let me know. Otherwise, I can write like a small recap in the chat.
So I think I have two questions there. So the first is on the transaction receipts. Is anyone here on the call familiar with this open question and can give more insights or not? If not, I'll try to understand.
Yeah, I can provide some insights. So this was regarding EAP 7778, and there was the discussion if it should add a new field to the receipt, which would be the gas spent, because of 7778, the gas accounting for the block will deviate from the gas accounting that the user pays, so on the transaction level. And in the end, we reverted back to not adding a new field to the receipt. So everything stays the same there. And I would assume that 8037 would probably prefer to add a new field to the receipt. From the 7778 discussion, Aragon was opposed to adding a new field to the receipt because it added like a few weeks more work for them. This is what I recall.
Was that just adding a new field or changing what the cumulative gas meant? Because I still think we should add a new field, because otherwise there's like this weird gap that you have to trace the block in order to. I mean, it's not even in tracing. To find why there's a difference between the transactions and the.
Yeah, maybe you're right. Maybe not the field is the problem, but the semantics of what cumulative gas means in the receipt. Yeah, if someone from Aragon is here, they can clarify. Otherwise, we can find out. But you would say then, like adding fields to the receipt is not a big thing.
No, it's a bit annoying, but no.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that, like, from the 8037 perspective, it's really like a kind of a similar problem that, like, now cumulative gas, it's unclear what it should mean. If it means something that's useful to users, like something where you can do the diff and get the transaction gas used, like the actual consumption of the transaction, then it's gonna diverge from the block cumulative gas. So yeah, I mean, which maybe it's fine. Like if the whole thing is just about users being able to do this diff, then okay, we could just interpret it that way. If not, then it should somehow there should be something that's also tracking block consumption, and I think there have to be two numbers basically.
Yeah, I'm wondering if this even needs the receipt at all. So why would we even put something into the receipt? We can completely shield it from the user because the user doesn't need to know that value, right? Or do you think users will be interested in how much gas they spent on a specific resource.
I mean, it's good that for not necessarily for users, but for doing analysis to work out where the resources have gone, because otherwise there's no way of evaluating what it is. And for people doing like accounting on using the data, do you have to run a validator, or can you just use the data coming from the receipts and block to work out how much states increased and such sort of things? Refunds are being given out, where they are.
Okay, so my understanding on this point is that it's a trade-off between making receipts a bit more user-friendly for the people trying to analyze the exact gas consumption versus the additional work of changing receipts. Is this a fair assessment? Tony, you were saying that you think this doesn't even need to touch receipts?
Yeah, this is just my initial feeling that we might just not even need to touch the receipts and it's all fine.
I mean, one of the reasons for ETH transfers emit a log is because the receipts are missing some data. So in order to get that data, you have to trace a block. And if we don't put the additional data in the receipts, we're back in that place where we have new stuff.
Right. But we don't tell users how much gas they spent on state creation today. So from a user perspective, I wouldn't actually care if there is a new value in the receipt that tells me how much gas I spent on state creation, for example. I only care about the gas used that I eventually pay.
But we're not pricing it differently. Whereas now we will be. We're not differentiating state creation at the moment. Whereas after this we are. So it might be like I only did a tiny bit of compute. Why am I being charged so much?
I'm not sure because you don't get a rationale for how much you're charged today. So in the end, what the user cares is how much is the user's account charged, no matter how we got there. And this simplifies it a lot because we get away without those changes.
I think it seems to me like the behavior that Ben wouldn't like to see is us just giving the regular gas spent. So, but if we had a sum of the regular gas plus the state gas, that would be equivalent to what we have right now, right?
Yeah, I mean, if the data can be, it doesn't need to be explicitly there, but if it can be derived, that's fine.
Right. Okay. So on Francesco's points, I guess like the last point was the one that I didn't fully understand. So the reservoir point, and I saw that Francesco, you wrote something here. So
Yeah,
it's
I mean
this transaction max limit enforcement.
Yeah, it's about that. Basically, I just, at least I mean in my version of the spec, this wasn't bound in the intrinsic gas consumption. It was just bound in the execution gas. Like we were just doing this basically give up to transaction max gas limit to execution as like gas during execution outside of the reservoir. So there would be like this like up to 16.7 million for execution and then potentially reservoir to draw from for state gas. But that's the only place where this kind of enforcement was happening. And so, for example, you could use much more call data than that, or just, I don't know, in principle, can use for intrinsic gas stuff, could go over the limit. And yeah, I guess just the question is just agreeing that we don't want that we actually want to enforce it also for intrinsic gas. I mean, this seems clear to me, but yeah, I guess we didn't like explicitly discuss this.
Okay, sounds good. So it seems like it's not as much as open question, but it's something we should add to the EIP and the specs.
Yeah, I mean, I guess maybe like in terms of question is whether what do we want to do with the call data floor cost there? I was thinking this would also be enforced to be less than transaction max gas limit, like as if the call data was actually priced at the higher cost, like for the purpose of this limit. But yeah, I guess that's, I don't know, just an opinion. It's maybe not obvious that that should be the case. And I mean, I guess in general, there's the question of like, what is the purpose of enforcing this limit for call data and like these other things that are not really execution. But I guess enforcing it is like the most consistent thing with the current spec. And I mean, maybe there's an argument that okay, eventually it anyway is helpful to ensure that transactions cannot be too big, even in terms of call data.
Yep. I think that would make sense to me. Okay. Any more comments on this point, or should we move to the next one? Okay, so moving to the next. I'm not sure. Is Anders in the call?
1 second.
Sorry, Maria.
Oh, no, go. Yes, sorry.
Before you jump on to another one, I will ask a question there. What about the refunds? And Mariziane posted the IP I was talking about. Should that be, I wonder if should be integrated with the state growth EIP to split up the regular gas from the state gas? Should we subtract the refunds from the state gas instead, like kind of integrating both EIPs in a way?
Right. So that's a good point. So my intuition is that it would make sense to integrate them, but I think we need to think a bit more on this. I think, Francesco, you were going to say something, then you muted again.
Yeah, I didn't fully understand what you mean by discounted from state gas.
As in a if you write something, you're using state gas, but sorry, if you create a new field, you're creating state gas. But if you delete something, you get a refund. Would that come? You know, if your net change is zero in terms of added state, yes, you.
Right. So the way I'm doing it right now in the spec for simplicity is to really just keep the current refund mechanism. So with the refund counter and all that, and it's applied to the transaction gas used at the end, so which is, and transaction consumption is like the sum of regular gas and state gas. So basically, like you track state gas and regular gas during execution separately, but then for the purpose of figuring out how much the transaction actually pay, you just take the sum and then take the refunds from there, like with the same mechanism that we have today with the 20% rule and all of that. So it's really actually completely unmodified from how it is today. Then, of course, we could be more trying to do more and for example, really say that if you netted zero state, then you should fully get back the state gas that you received. It is a bit more involved. It would just require a bit more tracking during execution to make sure that you only do this when like a call doesn't revert in which like state has been cleared or things like that, but it can be done. But again, I just chose not to do it because it felt like, in a way, almost like out of the scope of the IP, like trying to do something else. Yeah, the one place that I am doing this in, because there it worked out really easily, is the 7702 refund when the account already exists. This is like before the transaction, and there it was, yeah, just very easy to just completely remove this state gas consumption. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, we could do this, just it didn't seem necessary when, like, it seems like the current refund mechanism can work basically out of the box with this essentially. If we're not trying to do like basically make it better for users.
Okay, so maybe it's something we can think a bit more about and see if the added work has benefits, or if we should just, I would say maybe as a starting point, we can just leave it as is and then put it as an open question for later. Does that sound good, Luis? I think the Bezo team is muted. Not sure if you are answering, but
Yeah, I was trying to speak there. Well, at least I just threw the idea out there. To me, it looks like, from a conceptual point of view, it would be clean to, because these refunds to me look like incentives to the storage side. So it would look like they could fit very well in the state gas limits. But yeah, it's something to think about.
And
that's good.
remove the refund from execution side. And just have it on state gas. Is that correct?
Sorry, Ben, can you repeat it?
Remove the refund from the execution side entirely and just have it as a refund on state gas.
Exactly.
Okay. Any more comments on this, or should we move to the next agenda point? Perfect. So do we have Anders in the call? He had a comment on an analysis he did. I'm not seeing him. No. Then maybe I can just link to it and give a quick overview. But essentially, so Anders was analyzing this question of how the new way that we meter gas impacts base fee and then resource consumption overall. And so he did this nice visual of these two failure modes. So once we have the max function to define how full a block is, essentially you start to have this bottleneck resource. So if a block is using more regular gas than state gas, then the regular gas is the bottleneck, and this is the resource that will then influence how much the base fee increases in the next block. And so depending on the relative demand between these two resources, essentially you can have these two situations where in one case, the regular gas is the bottleneck resource. And so in this case, the state creation is a bit lower than if it was being used up to the target. I would say this failure mode is okay because, I mean, we are still processing at max throughput in terms of other resources, and we are not growing state too much. So I think this failure mode is okay. I think the one that is a bit more worried or worrisome is the failure mode 2, where actually the state gas is the bottleneck resource. And in this case, we end up having less or using less gas for regular gas than what we could. And so it means that our bursts or the compute resources and the state access resources are a bit underutilized. And this has an impact on how much we price state growth in relation to compute, and also what aggregation function do you use? Like, is the max the right function, or should we use another function? And I don't want to go into much detail here, but I'll also link to an analysis I posted today that actually link to both analyses if you want to check. But essentially here in this analysis, I'm taking into consideration the possibility of different demands for, or different demand values for regular gas and state gas, and how the different possible combinations of these two values would impact throughput and state growth under the different aggregation functions. And so at the end of the day, I think we can have, I think this is something we need to continue to discuss and analyze. So I'll put here the analysis, and if you have like any comments or questions, I'll be happy to discuss it more in depth. Yeah, so I think this is what I wanted to present for these two points. And just to clarify that, I think the view we take on these will have an impact on the final design for AT37 and how much so what is the increase in state gas versus the regular gas that we defined there. Are there any comments on this point? Okay. If not, maybe we can just move to the final point. So it's just an FYI that Tony has opened a PR for the data EIP, so 7976 and 79881. If you have any comments on those, and if you have time to check it and review it, it would be much appreciated. And yeah, I don't think I have more points on the agenda. Are there any open? Yeah, yes, Ben?
I'd just like to add an FYI on the T780, which is the transfer prices.
Yes.
So in the ETH transfers emitter log, there's no prices for the log. It's essentially free, and that's because ETH transfers are so massively overpriced. And in 2780, we're bringing it all down and doing it by component parts. But because of that, there is no longer any slack for, just putting the log in. So I'm going to add charging for the ETH transfer logs. It's not a huge amount, but in principle, how it's derived, the prices for the transactions and so forth, it's based on the costs of the parts. So there isn't any slack to say, oh yeah, we'll just say these are free. I mean, it will still be significantly cheaper than now, but that will be unless there's any objections, that will be another component that's included.
Tony, do you want to add anything, or do you have a different point? Raise.
Different point. So if someone wants to add something to Ben's point, I would just wait.
Okay.
Oh yeah,
Johan,
sorry.
do you?
Yeah. I have one question. So Ben, you were saying because it's correct, like the logs are currently free, I think, by the current spec. But if you do an ETH transfer by a call, then you have to pay 9K. So if you have a non-zero transfer, you have to pay 9K or maybe 5K, but at least this is priced in. But are you saying that you want to split up this 9K into like a specific component for the log and for the transfer, or not?
Well, 278 also brings down the cost for calls. So the transaction and calls are greatly reduced for an ETH transfer. So I'd add the log back onto both of them if ETH is being transferred.
Ah, right. Sorry, I confused these ERPs. I'm seeing you were talking about 278. Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, so the 9K transfer cost per call comes down significantly also. But because it comes down for only what it's doing, we'll have to add the ETH transfer, sorry, the log cost onto that because it's additional work that not in its pricing currently.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense because then you will basically split up the cost of this for the transfer cost and also like the logging cost. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Cool.
Okay, any more comments or questions on Ben's point? Perfect. If not, Tony, do you want to raise your point?
Yeah, just as a heads up regarding EIP 7976, this is the call data cost increase. So right now it's a very simple constant increase from 10 per call data token to 15. But there's also this discussion happening if we should harmonize the call data cost at the floor, which means we would change the EIP slightly such that users pay the same call data cost as today, at least not hitting the floor, so 4 and 16. And then if the call data cost outweighs execution, like in the 7623 model, then we charge 64 and 64. So the same cost per byte, because at this point, basically blocks are getting so large that it doesn't matter anymore if it's a 0 byte or a non-zero byte. Compression will not profit a lot from having a 0 byte. So it makes sense to price them the same. And the nice effect this would have is that we would only hit this 10 megabyte limit that we are always talking about. I think it's in the engine API, but I don't even recall that we only hit that limit when we are at 650 million gas. And otherwise, we would hit it at 150 million. So right now for DevNet 2, there are already discussions like if we can even go to 150 million for testing because some tests are not working anymore because of hitting limits. So it makes sense if we at least consider, instead of going to 15 and 60 call data cost, going directly to 64, 64. I already checked and it looks like it's marginally more users that are affected. A more comprehensive analysis to be done, of course. But so far, it looks like the impact would be marginal, while we actually, get rid of this max block size topic for a while.
Would that cause a massive cliff edge though? Because the difference, if you
A
go
massive
over by
was, sorry?
cliff edge. So if you go over by, one byte, so now it's cold data, suddenly your cold data.
No, the mechanism
goes up.
stays the same as it is with 7623. So you would still have this floor cost. You would just have on one side the price being calculated by call data with the 416 pricing plus execution gas. And on the other side of the max formula, you would have the call data floor pricing with the 6464.
Okay.
So it would not cause like a big jump. It would still be like a steady increase.
Thanks for raising that, and I think that seems to make sense, Tony.
Yeah. I think
okay,
I will create a PR for the 6464, and then in like 2 weeks I will put it on the agenda again, and maybe we can already finalize it because then it will be early enough for DevNet 3.
Sounds good. Anything else people want to discuss? Or should we wrap up? Yes, Sanskar?
Yeah, maybe just a very quick question. I think we have, remember, I see someone from OP Labs on the call and also from L2Beat. I'm just wondering if from either side, basically, if there's any comments on kind of obviously a lot of the L1 repricings might also end up wanting to be taken over by the L2s. And so is there anything in terms of process as we go through these um, changes on the L1 that we could do to help make this accessible for L2s? Is this already in a good place? I don't know, just anything in case, just in case either of you two or anyone else here that maybe is also from the L2 side on the call would have any comment. Just curious. Josh.
Yeah, thanks, Sanskar. Yeah, I think at this time there's not much action to be taken on our end. Obviously, there's a lot of the benchmarking work that's being done is, I guess, still applicable to ACID OP, which is great. I think for us, the only things that we look at primarily for like where divergence may happen or where additional risks may arise is when looking at DA cost and proof system implications, since those are really the two major differences between what happens at L1 and what happens on OP stack chains. I think one area for collaboration is to discuss maybe among the teams that are working on benchmarking at L1 and some of the benchmarking work that we're doing on the OP stack. Would love to maybe form some tighter collaboration there, since I think I sense that there's a lot of repeat work that's being done. So I don't know, maybe we just align on the best place to share these findings, tooling, and just generally deduplicate a lot of the work that's happening. That would be maybe the only ask at this point. But yeah, looking forward to attending these calls in the future. And I think it's exciting progress all around.
Sounds good. That's a useful perspective. Thank you. And I'm not sure if anyone here on the call has anything right now to say in terms of like best place to share, kind of collaborate on benchmarking side questions. Otherwise, I think I know that this question has come up in the past. So I think we are kind of actively thinking about how to strengthen collaboration with our two stands. So otherwise, I can also just for now note down that OP Labs is also very interested. And so once we have some thoughts, we'll reach out to you all.
Yeah, maybe just to chime in, we are adding benchmark tests to the East testing suite. I'm not sure if OP Labs is aware of this, but this sounds something that can be directly integrated also in the benchmarks for the OP stack.
Excellent, thank you. Is this related to the benchmarker tool that I just happened to see is recently being developed?
Yes, yeah, exactly. But this is like, it's generic EVM opcode benchmarks, and also an effort to run this on top of state. So also benchmarking the state-related opcodes. So on top of big state.
Okay, fantastic. And the EEST benchmark suite, I'm not familiar with the details. Can that be run by external tooling as well? Like, I imagine do those tests like just craft transactions and then can be run by like an external orchestration tool? For example, we've been developing some things ourselves that we may want to use for this. Or does it require the use of the benchmarker tool?
So the output of these tests, they can be converted to fixtures, so like the normal testing format. The only thing is that we are currently working on if the fixtures are built on top of state, this is a little bit more difficult. But I think what we should maybe do is on EVE R&D, if we could use the EO testing channel for this to align like the benchmarking efforts to get there.
Okay, yeah, sounds good. Let's take the discussion there. Appreciate it.
Cool. I will open a thread there. Yeah, thanks.
Perfect. Is there any other points or questions? Okay, so if not, thank you all for attending, and yeah, this we'll have the next call in 2 weeks. Bye bye.
Bye.
Awesome. Thank you. Bye bye.